The Summer of Love, which people think was in 1967, but in actual fact ran over 2 years from 66 to 68 in the US, was the epicenter of the counterculture, beckoning thousands of young people to the San Francisco Bay Area. Flower power was up, war was down. That was 50 years ago. The Monterey International Pop Festival served as a precursor to Woodstock, possibly the world's most famous and influential music festival. And two young sound enthusiasts called John and Helen went on a date at a Berkeley hi-fi shop to hear the Beatles' seminal psychedelic Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That same year, John Meyer was tapped by Steve Miller to develop a better sound system for the blues rockers' Monterey pop performance. Whilst it would be another decade before Meyer Sound was formally founded, this formative period laid the cornerstones for a company that would blaze sonic trails and provide innovative audio experiences from the analog into the digital ages. The important point John makes is that you can innovate at any time, and they've proved that decade after decade. So at InfoComm 2017, AV Magazine had a unique opportunity to chat with John and Helen to talk about their experiences and get their take on what's coming next in AV.
We have been coming to InfoComm for a very long time. It's a great show for us. We do a lot of education here. We do a lot of meetings. A lot of the demos that we do are here at InfoComm. It's a great show.
I generally just relax unless I'm, waiting for someone to talk to or something like that. I don't walk the show as much as I used to because I get stopped too much, so when I'll walk the show when it's like yesterday when it isn't like full of people. Just kind of see what's happening, I see a lot of retrograde stuff, the audio industry always, there's always this kind of like stuff to the past, a lot of, and see what kind of like, if there's any innovation going on, things like that.
The Summer of Love was in San Francisco in 1967, and John and I met in 1967 during the Summer of Love. So we're celebrating our 50 years together, and it was sort of the beginning of when John did a lot of sound work, and it was really the start of how we got interested in music.
Yeah, the 66 is kind of when it started, like the Avalon opened up, kind of the new music, and it was kind of like a scene with, kind of like visuals, blobby things on the wall. The band, everyone was on the same floor. It was like a very informal kind of time, kind of like a revolution against the theater and stage and, kind of like sitting in seats. It was a much kind of like everyone was kind of trying to break away from this theater kind of 40s, vaudeville kind of thing. And so we were all, San Francisco was all about that, and it lasted a couple of years before the commercial people got back involved and wanted to make it organized back into a flow. So it was a couple of years, 66, 67, 68 was kind of the peak of this time.
I mean, in 1967, our first date was John taking me to listen to Sgt. Pepper's on what he considered a really good sound system at that time. And what it did to me is it like opened up my ears to what sound could be. And John said, we should make this the way everyone should hear sound like this. So it was sort of the initiation, the origin of John wanting to do sound for everyone, because back in 67, everyone was sort of feeling like everyone should be happy and everyone should hear music and do things in a fun way. It was a fun time.
Yeah. The commercial people at the time we went to them and they'd say, well, this is not going to last, this is just a fad, so no one wanted to put any energy into it. No one wanted to try to make it happen, so everyone started to think about, we'll do this on our own then, try to get, very difficult to get, the industry is kind of, they didn't see it. They didn't see what was happening. When Monterey Pop Festival was kind of the start of showing that there's a lot of people interested in this new dimension, and so everyone started to work on their own to create sound for the bands and things like that. At any time, you can be innovative. You want to show the people coming into the trade that that's what we did. We broke out now we have a new time to break out with digital, with neuroscience, and everyone's discovering that that there's a whole dimension. Music now with neurobiology and things like that, you can see the whole brain's involved with music more than video games or anything. So there's a whole new chance to really think about going on, rather than going backwards. We're not trying to go backwards and say like you see. Some of the people here are going back to stuff that we were building in that time. That's not what we're trying to do. We don't want cars from the 50s. What we want to do is we want to get the kids to realize there's a new dimension opening up, and this is how we did it. This is your chance to really see that there's a whole way we're going to think about sound. This is probably why people are going back to records. It's a revolt against the kind of compression and the commercialization of the whole thing. Same thing we were revolting against, vaudeville theater. They're revolting against this generation, against the fact that all their music is compressed and dumbed down. It's a commercial thing. It's not done for the music. I mean, we were doing things to try and make people feel and understand the music, from the artists to the musicians. Putting 10,000 songs on your cell phone so that you can have it crushed to death and get payment for it is not the same spirit, and it's why they're retreating, into records and things. And we don't want to go back to records. We want them to go back to recognize why they like records. Records are pure in the sense that they weren't edited, they weren't like archive perfect, they weren't note inserted. The 80s put all this digital into play, so everyone started making archive records rather than music or live music. So I think we want to say what you need to do is break out of this world, and so that's what we're trying to say.
What's coming next? Better sounding products, more integrated products that are easier to use, but that are full spectrum, that are able to reproduce sounds that we've never actually experienced before. We have some speakers that go down very, very low, deep, and so we've got some new stuff on the horizon. It's good. We're not bored.
You see the young generation, they're asking, you do these talks, they're asking questions about, you can see they're interested in this. We just have to figure out how to communicate with the young people. It's like, I see when we do a hook up to a video, it's like way too complicated. Nobody can get it to work. I mean, the digital is not making things easier. It's making things harder and more. It's isolating us from what we're trying to do, and it's getting too complicated. And you want to kind of like create. It doesn't need to be complicated to be interesting. It should be the music is what we should be worried about, not trying to make all these networks and all this kind of stuff so complicated that you need an IT department to get your home system to work. It's not our vision.